Welcome back to another episode of the Pain, Performance, and Pohada podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nick Smith. I'm a licensed physical therapist and strength and conditioning coach for jiu-jitsu and other combat athletes. One of my sole missions as a healthcare provider is to essentially be a liaison between the average grappler combat athlete and medical professionals. Part of what makes this liaison, bridge, whatever you want to call it, so important is because grapplers often go into their medical appointments without a lot of ammunition, so to say. They sustain an injury and they're going to what they deem as a professional to help them out with this injury. And a lot of times they go in not really knowing what questions to ask, what things to do to advocate for themselves. And part of my journey as a content creator, podcaster, whatever you want to call me, is to help grapplers establish a little bit more information, to be a little bit more in the know as they approach these interactions with other healthcare providers, especially those who don't necessarily interact with combat sports in general. There are some medical providers who opt for a little bit more conservative approaches to things, especially with liability and how litigious our current culture is. And that is okay to a certain extent, but it doesn't necessarily serve the patient. It doesn't serve the athlete ideally. So I think it's important to educate grapplers to not go in completely empty-handed and not having these high expectations that a medical provider is just going to be like, go for it, dude, you're good, without giving any tactical planning. And if you are, let's say you get injured and you need to go see an orthopedist, maybe you haven't interacted with a physical therapist yet who works with jiu-jitsu combat athletes, and your first line of communication is with your PCP, primary care, or maybe you got a referral for ortho because you already went to urgent care. I would love for you guys to be able to have a set of questions to be a little bit more equipped. And I'm going to paint a couple scenarios for you that maybe you've had or maybe you might have in the future. And I want you to reflect back on those times and try to see maybe where things could have improved, or if you have an upcoming appointment, how you can take this list, so to say, of questions and come in a little bit more educated to advocate for yourself. And this would apply to somebody who maybe this is the first interaction you're having with your ortho. Maybe you've opted for surgery and you've maybe done various physical therapy at other clinics that wasn't helpful. Now you're getting surgery and all you've been educated on is the surgery itself, not what comes afterwards. A lot of grapplers go into surgical appointments thinking that the surgery is going to fix the problem. And in some cases it can, but what you may have a preconceived notion of thinking that things are going to improve within days or weeks due to this surgery may actually take months and months of proper rehab before you get back to 100%, especially if that particular surgeon is not familiar with the sport that you participate in. A lot of times the time that they give you for healing is around just normal activities of daily living and resting pain, not being able to thrive as an athlete or a participant in another sport. So let's imagine for a second, you've gone into your ortho appointment and you've had your x-ray, you've been put through all of the healthcare nonsense fuck about where you've maybe done urgent care, you've done the ER visit, you've gotten an x-ray. you're aware that it's not broken because you can either walk on it, you can move on it, you know it's not broken. But they give you an x-ray anyway because that's the policy. You get the x-ray. Go figure, it's not broken. You already know that. But you still can't train. So you're like, now what? So maybe you've gone to your PCP. Or maybe you've already expedited this process. You've gone to your PCP, you've waited a month, and you finally got an appointment with your orthopedist. And chances are, during that time that you've been waiting over the last 4 weeks, things have improved. Or maybe they've just kind of stayed stagnant. They haven't gotten worse. They haven't gotten better. You can get around the house. You can go to work. You can do the things mostly that you can do. But training is not like how it used to be. So you go into your orthopedist, and they're like, okay, well, you're not necessarily a surgical candidate because, we've done X and Y tests. They run some tests through you. They show that things are kind of, structurally mostly intact. You're not completely tore up. You don't need surgery. And then they give you a list of, prerequisites. Okay, well, this is going to take, I want you to rest it for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you can go back to your training. And this is where I'm going to cut you off. You can anticipate this preemptively. When they give you that arbitrary timeline, I do want you to push back. Not in a rude way. Come from a place of curiosity. And if you're going to say, okay, by rest, do you mean sit on my ass and do absolutely nothing for 6 to 8 weeks? Or does that mean that I can do activities such as strength training, physical therapy, limited activities of jiu-jitsu, combat athletes, whatever you're doing, that does not make my pain worse? And I would lead with that question first. And the reason for that is because it's going to force them to answer more specifically. If they say, I want you to completely sit on your ass and do nothing, go find another provider at that point. You write them off. That's not helpful. You can try to salvage it by saying, can I get a prescription for physical therapy then? Because I cannot sit on my ass and I would like to train sooner versus later. Hopefully they'll advocate for you at that point. I would always push for rehab to some degree because with almost every single injury, rehab is going to benefit you because it's either going to get you better and you can train right away, or it will improve the symptoms that you have, maybe limitations in range of motion, difficulties in strength, swelling, pain control. It's going to help with that. So even if, worst case scenario, it leads to surgery, all those things you worked on in physical therapy will actually make the process of physical therapy after surgery better. Your healing time, your recovery rates, your success rates are going to go up by doing physical therapy. So rehab really doesn't have any disadvantages, assuming that it's not just like a really horrible experience. They overtrain you, they undertrain you. But for the most part, rehab is better than sitting on your butt entirely, even if the exercises are underdosed. But that's for another topic for another time. So I would lead with that question. Do you mean sit on my ass? Or does that mean that I can do activities at a rate that does not make my symptoms worse? Make them be specific. If they start giving you arbitrary lifting cutoffs, I don't even know if I'm finding the word. Let's say, you're not allowed to lift more than 10 pounds. That happens all the time. It is okay to ask, okay, 10 pounds, I hear you. What happens if I lift 11 pounds? Am I going to explode? Is my joint going to turn into sand? It won't. Push them to make them explain it. A lot of times they're going to give you very vague answers in which will not be helpful because they don't know, they're not equipped to be able to show you the process. Now, some really, really good surgeons are out there and they will have a team of physical therapists. They will know who to go to because they're aware my surgery, my pocket of expertise limits me here. What you need is a good physical therapist. They're going to show you exactly what you can do. They're going to show you exactly what is safe, what is not safe, and how to progress these things in a systematic way to be able to get back to training. And those good surgeons are the ones you want to try to find. Maybe they don't understand jiu-jitsu necessarily, but they understand sports. They understand that you need to be and it's important to find what's going to advocate for you and advocate, hey, rehab is definitely the way to go. Doing some exercise is going to make things better. I have a guy. This is who you need to go see. Let's change the story again. So we have the scenario of you're not a surgical candidate. What questions do I ask? Those are a couple really good questions. Tease out what specifically you are and are not allowed to do. If you're not getting the answers that you want, if they notice they are vague, I would push to advocate for yourself to get a script for physical therapy. That's your bailout. And I would push for that anyway, because if they can't help you, you're not a surgical candidate, the conservative route would be to do the work. They might try to stick you with an injection, probably not warranted. They will do it just to control pain, but there's nothing to prove that it actually helps things long term unless you're doing exercises afterwards. So conservatively, surgery, more conservative, injection, more conservative, rehab. Opt for rehab. Go for it. Can't hurt. You gotta ask. If they refuse to give you physical therapy, you find somebody who can, or you can just reach out. Go find a physical therapist. I can help you. I can point you in the direction of somebody who can help you. Advocate for yourself. Don't let somebody dictate your outcomes without any good, reasonable evidence and support. Flip side of this. Maybe you've done physical therapy. Maybe you've really jacked yourself up properly. And you tried to train around it without doing physical therapy, or you did the YouTube PT, Instagram PT, been following my videos, try to do some stuff, piece together this, horrible mixture of things, and it actually made things worse. Or you went back to training too quickly, really blew yourself up, and it just got bad. You are a surgical candidate. You really jacked yourself up. You're into this ortho appointment, and a lot of times the surgeon will give you really good explanation of what they are going to do in terms of the surgery. They're going to be like, all right, we're going to cut here, we're going to do this, we're going to repair this, blah, blah, blah. That's where it ends. And this is where you need to hear those things, hear them out, understand the procedures. They're experts in surgery. They're amazing at that, and that's where you should be following. Hopefully, they're also amazing in explaining the process of what happens afterwards. Not just, can I get through this procedure, but hey, I want you to limit yourself. I want to give you 72 hours to recover without doing any additional stress on it. Make sure there's no infection. And then after 72 hours, within that first week, I want you to try to book your physical therapy appointment so you can set it up ahead of time and go through the rehab. Now, there are surgeons out there, and I've heard countless stories of grapplers going to get surgery. And I've talked to them like, oh, okay, I'm really sorry to hear you have surgery. What's your rehab plan afterwards? And they will proceed to tell me, oh, my surgeon said that I won't need physical therapy after this. It's going to get better in a couple weeks and I'll be able to go back to training. My brother in Christ, what? If you have surgery of any sort, you are going to have 6 to 8 weeks of healing time just from the incisions from that surgery, just from them cutting inside of you. Even if it's to remove bony tissue, even if it's just like an arthroscopic cleanup and it's not that big of a deal, it is going to take 6 to 8 weeks just for that surgery to heal. That does not include the 6 to 8 weeks that you are going to be in a decreased load of activity during that 6 to 8 weeks post-surgery. Are you going to be training jiu-jitsu, hopefully, lifting weights like you were before, doing your strength training, all the mobility stuff, all the normal activity, reaching for the top shelf, whatever it is that you're doing for those 6 to 8 weeks? No, you're not. And during that time, atrophy, muscle loss, bone density loss, resilience to endurance to stress, all of those things deplete during the time that you are resting, which is why I'm so against rest. Your body needs time to build itself back up. So if you're going to be taking time off, you need to be able to take that time to build things back up again. Even if it is a minor surgery, rehab is almost always warranted. Maybe you don't need this very extensive, 6-month plan because it was an easier surgery, but getting an evaluation to be able to say, hey, these are the things that I demand of this joint in terms of range of motion, strength, and power. And these are the sport-specific tests that I need you to be able to pass. At least you have a clear picture of what you need to work on. Whether or not you decide to go through with it, having a really detailed plan, that's on you. But being able to talk to your surgeon and figure out what the next steps are just as critical, if not more critical, than doing the surgery itself. If you have a ACL surgery, yes, I am unable to perform an ACL reconstruction. But the ACL reconstruction, even if it is done perfectly, is absolutely worthless if you do not have the proper rehab. And in a lot of these cases, people are having surgery and not doing the necessary steps afterwards to be able to get back to training. Then 6 months, a year down the line, they're wondering, why does this still fucking hurt? Nothing is improved. I went through the surgery. I did the things I was supposed to do. I did the surgery, and then they're not better. And this is where I'm trying to eliminate this gray area for you guys. It's so important to be able to ask the questions. So going in, let's say they don't talk about what comes afterwards. Lead with that. After they're done explaining the procedures of surgery, I want you to ask them, what happens with rehab afterwards? What can I do safely immediately right after surgery? What am I allowed to do? How soon can I schedule physical therapy for this surgery? I would even start with that. That's another great question. And then I would ask them, what are absolute cannot do's for the next 4 weeks? Do you have a plan of what I am allowed and what I am not allowed to do at 2 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever the protocol is? Hopefully the surgeons have protocols. Ask them those questions, because it might be too late where you don't ask it during the consult and then you're stoned out of your gourd from being under anesthesia. You're being wheeled out and you weren't given any information. So go in knowing that when you come out of surgery, you have a plan moving forward. That way you can hit the ground running. You can take your day to recover for being stoned and under anesthesia. It takes me forever to come out. And you have a plan that, within a couple days of the surgery itself, you're going to be ready to hit the ground running with rehab. You're going to know exactly what is safe, what is not safe. And that way, you can also bring that information to your rehab specialist. I love having information from the surgeons telling me, hey, I want the surgery to hold. These are the things I'm allowing you to do. These are the things I would like you to absolutely avoid at all costs, at least for this time being. It's your surgery. I respect that. You got it. So that way, everybody's on the same page. Athlete, surgeon, PT, coach. Everybody's on the same page. There's no gray area. It's very clear. It's black and white. You have a system. You're ready to go. There's no wasted time. There's no wasted effort. And you're getting back to the mats as soon as possible. I want you guys to start advocating for yourselves. And I understand some of you just don't know what to ask. And that's what the whole point of this episode was. I'm finding that it is far too common for people just to not know what to say, not to know, and just kind of take everything at face value, because these doctors are supposed to be, the expert, and they are great at what they do. Sometimes people are not great communicators, and it's implied that these things are going to happen and you're not aware of it. So ask those questions. I'm thinking about even just writing some of these questions down, having some kind of format so you can just bring your sheet of paper with you your next consult. But if you're hearing this episode and you have an upcoming appointment, or maybe you've had one in the past, I want to hear about your experience. Maybe you are like, I got this coming up. What do I ask? You need a little revised list of things to advocate for your specific incident. I want you to reach out to me. In the show notes, you always know how to reach out to me via Instagram. You can connect with me to book a call. If I can be an advocate for you to help you through this process in any way, whether it's prior to your appointment, whether it's to help you out with surgery, or just to help you out with the whole process, I would love to be that person for you. So if you have any questions at all, please always feel free to reach out to me so I can be that person. I can advocate for you, make sure you're well equipped for your next appointment, and get you back to the mats as soon as possible. That's the end of this episode. Till next time, remember, pain is something to be respected, not feared. See you on the mats. See ya.